I fought back against the stalker who tried to kill me, and now he's serving a life sentence. I didn't know that I had a stalker at the time, so I went to bed. It was just a normal night. I locked all the windows and the doors, got into bed with my dog, and fell asleep at maybe about 10 p.m. Up, I think around 2:45 because my dog Cookie was barking. I didn't take it very seriously at all. I got Cookie to stop barking and went right back to sleep. Woke up again at 3 a.m. Because Cookie was barking and I could tell this time that it was something serious. So I got up, I sat up in bed, looked at my phone, and it was 3:04 a.m. And I looked up from my phone at the bedroom doorway, and there was a silhouette of a figure standing in my bedroom doorway. He kind of peeked his head into the doorway, and he was lit from the back, so I couldn't see any features on his face. I saw him kind of peek in and then peek right back out. I immediately started telling myself, this isn't real, you imagined it. Like my heart was beating, my thoughts were racing, I was scared, but I had just gotten into a fight with my boyfriend that night, and my brain just convinced me that this was either nothing, like I had imagined it, or that it was my ex trying to scare me. So I got up out of bed and left my phone. I had a hunting knife in my underwear drawer that a friend from Wisconsin, which is where I'm from originally, had given to me. I left that and walked out into the hallway, and no one was there. I walked into the living room where I thought my boyfriend would be. He wasn't there. Into the dining room. It was a little darker in there. No one was there. And then into the kitchen, and that's where I saw him. He was standing with his back up against the wall, and he was tall, and I saw right away that he had a knife in his hand. So I started to run. I didn't turn around. I scanned him up and down, and then started to run backwards. I ran backwards through the dining room, through the living room, smashed myself up against the living room windows. He chased after me. He quickly caught up to me. He held the knife to my throat and told me to shut the fuck up or I'm going to kill you. You see, I have a knife. Shut the fuck up. I'm going to kill you. And I did. I shut up. And from there, he started asking me questions. He asked me first, do you have a boyfriend? And like I said, I had just gotten into a fight with my then ex-boyfriend. This is also part of the story. And I lied and said that I had a boyfriend who would be back any minute, like we all would. And he did not seem very fazed by that, which made me nervous and scared. And then he said, where's the fucking money? And I took him into guest bedroom where I had $31 in a nightstand and passed it back to him. He was holding me with like his bicep and held the knife right here, and then held me with his left hand by I had like a messy bun in my hair. After I handed him the money, my heart sank because he said, now what else do you have for me? And then I knew why he was really there. So after he said, what else do you have for me? He took me into my bedroom, but he told me to stand up against the wall. And he, started feeling me up. I started to cry. I was begging, saying, I just kept saying over and over, you don't have to do this. Please don't do this. I'm a nice person. You don't have to do this. And all I felt still at this point was terror, fear. Who is this man? What does he want? I'd never seen him before. And, am I gonna survive this? So then, fuck. It actually left a little mark on my face. Dang it. So then he told me to go lay on my bed After I laid on the bed, he told me to stretch out my arms and legs, and I did. And he was still then, feeling me up. And for me, like, I was staring at the wall. He wanted me to look away from him. The knife was always at my throat. But I was looking at the wall, and I started to see, like, my life flash before my eyes. But it wasn't my past, it was my future. My brain was, like, sending me these images of me having a daughter. I don't have any children. Dancing at her wedding. My brain also showed me, like, pretty horrific things, like images that I've only seen in horror movies of what someone in a room with no consequences might do to me. And that, which was a pretty potent combination. The last thing my brain brought up for me was a scene from the TV show Dexter. I was not like a super fan of the show Dexter. I liked it. In this scene, it's like he's surely not going to make it. He says, "A wolf in a trap will chew off its own leg to survive. Its survival instinct is that strong." And I don't remember bookmarking this scene in my mind. It wasn't like something that I watched again and again. It was something that my mind must have just put in the back in case we needed it at some point, and we did, which I took as, you need to find any way that you can to survive this. My feeling was pretty strong, and I don't know if that's just intuition or fear, but my feeling was that he was not there with the intention to let me go. At the moment, there was no part of me that thought this, especially with the way that he was, that this man has a lot of mercy for me. Like I said, I was bawling, I was crying, and that only got him more excited. So I'm trying to go fast, but I'm trying to do this without the AC so you guys can hear. So I make up my mind to sacrifice my arms. In my mind, I was like, if I just start, doing this, and he slashes at me with the knife, maybe I lose my arms, but I'll walk away with my heart. And in my mind at the time, that was like, walk away with my heart beating so that I'll survive. But I think there's obviously like deeper meaning, deeper levels to that. So he told me to turn on my side, and as I did, and he was like climbing up on the bed behind me, he pulled the knife away from my throat for a second. It was the first time that the knife had been away from my throat since he'd caught me on the couch. In that second, I chose to scream, and I screamed, "Somebody fucking help me!" Like as loud as I could. I lived in an apartment complex, so, like, hopefully someone can hear me. In my mind, I was screaming loud enough for my family, my dad, my brothers to hear me all the way back in Wisconsin. He then jumps on top of me, straddles me. We start fighting like this. And he, like, I remember just like a flurry of hands. He's on top of me. And then I remember feeling like bop, bop right here in my head. And it felt like he was hitting me with the butt of the knife. And I wondered why he would hit me with the dull end. But then after that, I saw a white light. And it was like, white light, white light, white light. And I realized he's punching you. No matter how many times he punches you, you can't fall asleep. If you fall asleep, you die. And I remember thinking, at least he doesn't punch very hard. And then he stopped, and I was able to get my legs up underneath him and push him off the bed. And immediately I sat up, like, I hadn't felt myself get stabbed. I hadn't felt any pain at all, but just kind of instinctively, my body told me to hold up my left hand. And I held up my left hand and saw that my ring finger and my pinky finger had been partially severed. So then I thought I had lip gloss in here. Yes, I do. Then everything changed. When I saw that my fingers had been almost severed, I went from feeling utter terror to complete rage. Every cell in my body was swollen with and pulsating red with rage. Like I've never felt before. And I looked down at him on the floor and screamed at him, "You cut my fucking fingers off? You cut my fingers off? I'm gonna you." So when I said I'm gonna you, I meant it in every sense of the word. All I felt was a desire to kill this man. So I jumped down onto the floor. He was like still sitting on the floor looking at his hands. And I started to punch him, kick him. You know, like my left hand was hurt badly, but I was punching with my right. I was kicking him with my bare feet, attacking him, screaming, "Get the fuck out of my house. I'm gonna kill you. Get the fuck out of my house." And he stood back up, pushed me back down onto the floor, and was slashing at me again. I put up my arms and we fought a little bit more on the floor. Then all of a sudden I saw that he stood up and he started running. And I thought, okay, now I guess we're running. I ran after him. I went out to the hallway and there was a lamp that I pulled out of the wall. He ran to the front door and he started messing with the locks. I was hitting him over the back with the lamp, screaming, "Get the out of my house, I'm gonna kill you, get the out of my house, I'm gonna kill you." He reached back and he knocked the lamp out of my hand. I grabbed another lamp, pulled that out of the wall, was hitting him with that on the back, reached back, hit that out of my hands, but then he got the door open, the deadbolt opened the door and ran out. I didn't find out that night. I didn't find out even a day after, a month after, that he had been stalking me for as long as he had. That came later. There are also a couple of other things, elements to the story, especially that happened in the afterward, that were surprises, things that I think many women can relate to. But like I said, I want to share this story if it's interesting to you guys, if it's something, you know, like that makes you feel empowered. I really want to only, you know, share things if it's helpful and not hurtful. I just think that, like, for me, I felt so lost after the attack. I felt like I couldn't find a depiction of my story in the media, in movies. I want to share the story, like I said, because there was no way that I thought that I would have been someone that fought back. No way. You know, like, I had no training. I had never been to a self-defense class. Now I box. I had never been to a boxing class. I had had experiences in my past where I hadn't stood up for, I was like in a relationship with, like in a toxic relationship where I wasn't standing up for myself every day. You know, like, and I'd had instances of SA like this that I hadn't stood up for myself. So it wasn't like I was like born to fight. It required me to find strength that I didn't know I had. Like, pull this fighter out of me that I didn't know that I would ever need or that I could even ever find. If you guys are interested in hearing more about this story, let me know for sure in the comments. I'm an open book. Also, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. And just don't forget how strong you are, bitch. Like, it can come at the most surprising time, but the strength is there, I promise you. So, stalking me for 7 years. How did we get there? I'm sure you guys can tell that I've been a little reluctant to talk about the stalking piece. I think that's threefold. One, I would say, is the thing that scares me the most. Of all the things I've talked about, that's the thing that really gets under my skin and makes my skin crawl. Two, I would say, because it happened later in the timeline, that, you know, we didn't find out about that right away. There were clues that came along the way, and it was over the course of like months and years. Three, we just have the least amount of information from the police about that part, which I'll explain. First, I'll talk about how he was arrested. He left fingerprints like I showed you guys. He also left DNA. That was something that when he stabbed me in the head, because it was just a kitchen knife from my kitchen, when it impacted the bone, his hand slid on it and it cut his hand really badly. That's why when he was down on the ground, he was looking at his hands when I first sat up, like, and then he also left, I didn't tell you guys this yet, but he also left I think he dropped his cell phone, he dropped his ID, he dropped his credit card, he dropped his like headphones, all on the ground while we were fighting. So that was all on the ground in my bedroom. So all to say the police had plenty to catch him with. They used his fingerprints. They ran him in the system. He was in the system. He was on parole. So this happened on a Thursday night, Friday morning, and they arrested him on Monday at his parole meeting. But in the ER, met the detective for the first time. And I won't say his name. I won't share his identity, but, I don't think I said this on the podcast, but he's very handsome. And we had the same birthday. So shout out. But, he arrested the man who attacked me on Monday. And then from there, he was our point of contact for asking questions or any next steps in the. So when they told me that he got arrested, I was still in the hospital. I was high on a bunch of pain medications. I was surrounded by family and friends. So I was in my bubble and it didn't really sink in or process it. I was relieved, but at that time, like I didn't really feel much of anything, to be honest. But then when I got out of the hospital, the detective warned me to stay off of social media, to stay out of the public eye, to not go back to my old address, and to find someplace else to stay, because he said, even though the man who attacked me is in jail, they don't know if he would have anyone on the outside that would potentially come to intimidate me out of testifying or come to hurt me in any way. So me and my family got an Airbnb and we stayed there for a couple months. My family stayed with me for, I think, like a month and a half. And I think I know it was in the Airbnb that I first started to feel this tickling, where I started to think, was he just walking by on the sidewalk and thought, I'm going to break into this girl's house today? Or had he been watching me for a few days? Had he kind of cased the apartment? Like it started to creep in this fear that maybe I had been hunted. That was how it felt. That was the fear. Look at the windows at night. At that time, I was staying up all night. I couldn't sleep. And I would stay up all night. I was in a lot of pain from my hand. Then the pain happened. But I would just stare at the windows and wonder if there was someone on the other side. So even though I was afraid, and even though there were these kind of unanswered questions, months went by without any new developments there, any new information there. Other new developments and other new things came in, like the DNA came in and confirmed that it was him, things like that. But as far as him watching me, that still was a mystery. It was about, I think, maybe 6 months after the attack. The attack happened in February. And I believe this was in like July or August, that I got a call from the detective. And he was in the car. I could tell that he was in the car driving. And he said, I need to ask you 3 questions and they're going to sound really strange. And I, of course, said, sure, like, okay, anything. And the first question was, were you at a party the night of the attack? And I said no, because I wasn't. I had gotten my hair cut that day and like made dinner and ate it on the couch. And he said, the second question is, do you know Nipsey Hussle? And I said, I know his music. This was at a time when he was alive, but I don't know him personally. So he said, okay. And then he said, the third question is, have you been to Arizona? And I thought about it and I said, yes. When I first moved to LA, I had a boyfriend and he had family that had moved from northern Wisconsin to Arizona. And he said, okay, what year was that? And I told him what year. And then he said, okay, do you know the name of the city? that you visited in Arizona. And I thought for a second, because I knew it was like a silly name. It was like a funny name where where my ex's family lived. I thought about it and I was like, I can't remember, but I think it's Happy, Arizona. And he paused and he said, okay, think about it and call me if you remember anything else. So I started pacing and I was thinking and I was thinking and I was trying to make all these connections. What is it? Like Nipsey Hussle and the party, and was I, supposed to go to a party, and how is it all connected? And I just was like, brrr. So I decided to go to the movies, which was something that I did like, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 times a week around that time. Because it was the one place that I could get my thoughts to turn off, that I could just be in a dark room and watch someone else's story on the screen. So I went to the movies, and afterward I went and sat at this little wine bar outside of the movie theater, and it was late and I was the only one there. And I just started Googling his name, the man who attacked me, his name, and Arizona. And nothing came up. And then I Googled his name and Phoenix, Arizona. And I got a hit, like I saw his name and it was all these addresses. Saw his most recent address, which was in Los Angeles. And then I saw his last address, which was in Surprise, Arizona, and that he had moved to Los Angeles in 2011. I called the detective and I freaked out and I was like, it was Surprise, Arizona, and it was in 2011 and that's when I moved here. And he was like, I know. I needed you to come do it on your own. And let me know if you remember anything else. I said, can you tell me anything? Why? Like, why are you asking these questions? Where did this come from? Said, I can't tell you everything. What I can tell you is that someone wrote a letter to the DA's office and they are in daily contact with the man who attacked me. And they wrote a 6-page letter that has information in it that we are investigating and that we are looking into. And that was where he was driving that day, was to talk to this person. That's all that I can tell you. I'm sorry. So I went home that night and, there were all these unanswered questions in my head, and it stayed that way for how long? I think a little over 2 years. So flash forward to fall of 2020. There's a lot more things that happen in there that I'll tell you guys about, of course, but for the purpose of this information, the stalking piece and how this started to take shape, we're about to go to trial. And I think to myself, like, this is the time. This is when I'm going to get to finally read this letter. This letter's going to come out. I knew that he wasn't charged for stalking. They had discussed that with me beforehand, that they had been investigating, but that was just, they already had 2 charges that they were charging him with that could carry a life sentence. So they felt like they had already kind of hedged their bets and they felt confident in getting that conviction. And I'll do a post about like what he was, what his charges were and what he was convicted of. But I knew he wasn't being charged for stalking, but I still thought, if someone wrote this letter into the DA's office saying, you need to hear this about this man, that this letter was going to come up in the evidence. We get through the trial and no mention of the letter. The letter never comes up. And about a week after the trial is over, I finally get a chance to read this letter. I've never let anyone read the letter. I have pictures of it and I've never shared it. I don't want to share who the person was that wrote it because I worry about like their safety and making sure that they're safe. But I do think there's pieces of this letter that I can show you guys. Also, the whole letter is a little bit like there's stuff in there that's just eerie about him with other things. I'll do a separate post that's all about this letter, and I'll show you pieces of it that started to really fill out this picture for how long he had been watching and things that he had admitted to when it came to me, and then I think more disturbingly when it came to potentially other women. I know that's a lot to digest, and I hope that I'm like giving you guys enough information to follow along so that you feel like you're not like, wait, what? Like, and then what? It is a little bit like that, but I'm gonna keep posting more information and answering you guys' questions. I'll do a full post about the letter. And I'm gonna start digging into too, like once we get there, like the road to getting to trial, because for me, I felt very lost going through that process. I was like, I thought we were gonna go to trial like as soon as I got out of the hospital. And it was not, it was a long, hard road, and it took a lot of pushing from my end, and it took a lot of time, and it took a lot of energy from the detective and from, like the DA's office. And it just was a very huge effort to get there that took a very long time. This is just kind of like, I have a lot more things to say, and we have done kind of our own digging. So I'll share more about that, but I know you guys were wondering this, like, how do you know that he was watching you for that long? Because that's, I find to be the scariest part. So I'll keep sharing more, but that I wanted to let you guys know, like this was the breadcrumbs that led us on this path.
Am I the asshole for my response after my friend kept bragging about her boyfriend's dick size? Oh, I, female, have a friend, female, who recently started dating a guy she met on some dating app. They've been together for roughly 3 months, I think. Ever since she got with him, she's been humble bragging about his alleged penis size. Alleged. She will make these subtle remarks about them needing so much lube, that she's so sore today, wink wink, and all that shit. No one in my group, there's 6 of us in total, all 22 to 24 female, spoke up about it, and we always let it slide or laughed it off. However, it was cringe because she clearly wanted us to know. Hell, probably wanted us to picture her man's wiener. Why? FYI, she's never done this sort of thing before. She's typically private when it comes to intimate info like that. So this is out of character. All caps. It's so damn annoying and unnecessary and TMI. A few days ago, we all went out to brunch. I ordered a drink that came in a glass that looked semi-phallic, and someone jokingly said, that'll do. The dick bragger burst into laughter and immediately managed to make a pervy reference to her boyfriend somehow. I was extremely fed up. I finally told her that I'm very curious at this point and need to see hard, physical evidence of said penis. Oh. I said that everyone at the table is curious about this mythical sausage and wants to see with their own eyes if the urban legends are true. I told her to show me a picture of her boyfriend's penis ASAP so I can verify her claims independently. I explained that I established an interim dick size accuracy committee. Oh, wow. Obviously, she got angry and said that I'm not funny. I told her I wasn't joking and genuinely wanted to see it for myself with my own eyeballs that I trust. She said that she obviously wouldn't share any dick pics and that I'm fucked in the head. We ended up having a huge argument and she left early, alone. Now there's 2 camps. Some saying that I crossed a line and went too far with my joke. Others saying that they're relieved that someone finally spoke up. Am I the asshole? No.
Am I in the wrong for bringing up divorce for my wife cheating after I cheated years ago? My wife and I have been together for 12 years and married for 9. We have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. I had an affair with a mutual friend about a year after my 4-year-old was born, and I regret it. She was living with her husband to Germany, and I hadn't done the deed for over a year because my wife did not want any sexual contact after the birth, and we slept together 6 times. I assumed that my wife wouldn't find out, but she told my ex a year after our affair in Germany because she felt guilty and was leaving her husband. She either wanted to take me down with her, or she assumed that we would divorce and we might get together. Either way, I groveled and begged for my wife's forgiveness. She wanted a divorce, but I didn't. I know she stayed mainly because of how hard it is to be a single mom, and I hope that she would eventually forgive me. She asked that I agreed to let her have an affair like I did with someone of her choosing as a condition of staying married, and I stupidly agreed because I didn't think that she would actually do it. It's been a long road, but I honestly thought that she forgave the affair. We've been raising our children and been intimate regularly. We bought a house together and moved to be close to our parents. I thought that this was behind us. 4 months ago, she told me that she was having an affair with a newly divorced friend. I was absolutely shocked and angry, but she reminded me that I agreed, and I did, but man, it sucks. She's way more manipulative than I thought possible because she waited until one of my close friends was divorced. I tried not to show it, but I was livid and I feel so hurt. Yes, I know it's ironic because I cheated first. She has since finished the affair and told me that it was the same length and number of experiences as mine. I haven't talked to that friend and I have no idea if I ever can again. He never reached out, so I assume that it's the end of our friendship. I'm thinking of divorce because clearly she never forgave me and I can't forgive her for this. I brought up divorce and she got mad and reminded me that I gave her a free affair card years ago. I told her clearly by this it meant that she hasn't forgiven me, and she said that she had forgiven me the second that she had her affair. Am I in the wrong for wanting to divorce?